it, math, and then I'm seeing even courses being redesigned from the chemistry standpoint, because we have different levels. Some have an entrance exam to get into Gen Chem, some don't, some have ACT scores, some may have requirement of actually having a chemistry course, and sometimes you might have the challenge of none of these kids have even seen chemistry yet. And then along those lines, reading or being introduced to topics before lecture. This is something students don't naturally do. It goes back to study skills, and I see different ways of approaching. And then even after the lecture and when you assign homework, this fact that kids are Googling everything. That's almost what I've called it is learning by scavenger hunt. Basically, they go to your homework, they open it, they know it's worth points, they need to grab those points, and as soon as they struggle, no matter what resources you've provided, they go and Google to try to find who can teach it or explain it to them better. Can they find a resource to help them? They're after that piece. And I think what it goes back to is when are they being introduced to something, and how are they being introduced to? They're kind of reversing it. They're like, oh, I'm going to go find out what that is to kind of relive it again because I didn't get the most out of that lecture, or I didn't pay attention to that lecture. But this Google piece is one of the biggest challenges. And because that is so readily available, and now we've got other things that come in, that's the positive side, right? They're going and looking for things to relearn, but there's also the negative. They could be going looking just for answers, because those are all out there now on the internet too, with the chat GPT becoming more powerful every day. And so again, getting them out of this mindset that they only see homework as a way to get points. They are completely detached from the idea that the homework is an opportunity for learning, even if it's down to that. What I say 80% of my chemists do, typically when they use online technology, it's just to grade into chapter questions. It's really just to assess. And that's one of the biggest things I want to kind of bring up with you all, is looking at this as a way to serve many functions, because that's where a lot of the underlining power inside mastering can really unlock some things for you, is stepping outside and thinking of these systems as just a way to grade homework, and more of a way of fostering learning. You can still do that. We still do that very well, and we probably have the most end of chapter questions to get to, the most supportive, all those types of things, which is good. But opening that mind of getting them to see these assignments might have different purposes other than just assessing if they know it or not. And that fact can be supported on some of these some research I've been doing around what happened from COVID, where a lot of people are modularizing their course. I don't know if any of you all have done that, but essentially I'll go through and show you what that means. And students crave this, and they crave this because they don't have the study skills. And what they had in high school were these chapters set up where there was 5 or 6 steps they had to work through, and everything was there. And it's what I call a learning path. It's making them make sure they go through all of these steps to understand the material. And so hopefully you'll see how this all comes back together. But a lot from an article I can share with you all. It's this one here. When we talk about these modules, essentially they're called, they're high structure courses, and this one's for A&P. But
you all need to.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I was just moving my computer up for them.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, perfect. All right. So anyway, in this study, they referenced the study about student study skills and why they went to these high structure courses. And some of the facts I pull out are things we already know. 86% never review material after class. And 60% consider highlighting and reading is studying. And what you think about that was, what are they doing when they're highlighting? They're essentially in their brain saying, that looks important. I might want to remember that down the road. Not, do I understand what it's explaining to me, which is what we want them to do when they engage in a book, if they ever are reading the book. So getting them to do some of these tasks are ways that we can help you here. And then, of course, 60% do not, plan their study ahead of time. Instead, they focus on just what's due. And that, again, kind of comes back to these ideas around modules. And so with this, I kind of want to bring these up, we've got lots of tools that can help you address these, whatever battle you want to take. And again, we can go really in depth and you can try and attack them all with my suggestions, or what I always recommend is just find the one thing you think is going to impact your course and say, let's try that. That might be the biggest lift. And then having a system like ours in mastering that can grow with you. And I mean grow. You can get into the weeds on actually writing your own content and customizing things. And I have a physicist at the University of Missouri where she uses an OER book, but she just uses mastering to write all her own questions. She's got thousands of questions and modules she's built inside here because of the format it allows you to do. So, all right, so hopefully that sets the table a little bit. So let's kind of go into my quick little piece and dive into that a little bit more. And I told you I'm a nerd around learning science. So this book was pointed out to me by one of our authors on the Brown LeMay text. He's down here. This is Matt Stolfus. He's at Ohio State. Him and I get geeky out on summers about, just pulling in pedagogy and learning science and how can we apply it to help kids. And he did a webinar for us back in August, kind of around course design and around how he, approaches it and how it really affects kids, because he also partners with another person in his department, and they've got some really good results around how they design their course and the tools they use, especially around how it's helping first generational college students, DFW rates, and DE and I students. And so how we can really help those students just with tweaking how you deliver some of these things and pulling some of these philosophies in. And so this is how I've always talked about mastering, but I've never been able to find a way to easily connect it for you all. The educator in me and my master's in education, all that. How do I explain this simply to chemists that typically just want to grab into chapter questions and have them graded, right? How do I open up all these other things to them? And so that what I liked in this book is that it had some quick visuals. And so essentially these 5 steps are kind of a real simple way of explaining how students learn or how anybody learns. At first, you start off with prior knowledge. Right? And that knowledge allows you to connect new knowledge to it. So you introduce the new knowledge and you start making connections. This is a trouble you guys have already, prior knowledge, right? We have so many ranges, right? Math skills, chemistry skills, all of that. So even that is something that needs to be addressed, and having tools to impact that so you can make these connections quicker. So the new knowledge is introduced, you start making connections. Once you've worked on it and practiced it and consolidated it, heard instructors work through it, then you make those connections, and then you can build on that from there for the course, and everything starts getting connected. So that's the simple piece of learning. And so what I try to do is then take that and say, okay, this is where that module comes in, or this is where that thought of instructional design comes in, is I always then take this and show you and say, okay, then what are you doing to institute steps so that every student is doing these practices, because they don't do it naturally. We know they don't have good study skills. And so by breaking it down in these simple forms, then we start thinking, oh, okay, what are you doing to introduce the topic to the students? Traditionally, a lot of us might just put on our syllabus, read chapter 1 before lecture, right? You may have taken it a step further. You may have said, hey, you know what? I've started, maybe some of you flip a classroom and you've done recordings and things like that. There's all different types of ways, but breaking it down this way makes you kind of open up the idea of, oh, mastering can help me in all these different things. Because what I've done is I've aligned tools with mastering that says, hey, we can help you with all these steps. So even if you were just that traditional dip your toe in the water, just using technology to grade things, you can practice and check all you want in mastering. And we've got lots of ways to do that. But then how can we help you do these other steps? Because that's the whole reason to me to use technologies like this, or for us to develop things, because the big win here is now you can take points, because we know they only do it points, counts for points, and walk a D and C student down the same path that an A student does on their own, right? An A student's going to do it naturally. They're even going to come beg for more stuff from you. Give me more practice questions, things like that. But points are what hold them to it. And so taking advantage of those points of forcing him down this path. Now we get into all these philosophies of like, I don't want to force them. They're going to come bother me to open up assignments. You have to decide what you think is most useful. But we have the tools for you to do these things all along the way. Any questions so far? Perfect. All right. So then what does that mean? How can we do that quick and easy? So what that turns into is that highly structured course I talked about. And when you get in here is you'll end up with something like this. And these are essentially just mastering assignments. Okay. But they're that structure around that idea, introducing a topic. So we have the ability to just and think about living, and this pulls in theories of instructional design too, keeping students right in the one spot they need to do all their learning. They're not going out to Google to learn everything. Everything's there. And the benefit is it's in the same author's voice. It's taught the same way that you've picked from the author as far as, you know, how you wanted it explained, and it's going to match much easier and make it less, they call it cognitive load. It's less of their ability to go figure out if that's something that's going to help them on whatever you've assigned. Everything's going to have a connection right here within here. So this is a scheduled reading. So basically there's no grade here, but you can put a click here so it opens right to the page of the book to make sure those students are getting it open at least, right? Now there's a million other things you can do along with that. I can give you ideas about embedding things in the book and all that kind of stuff to get them engaged, but at least having it open, right? You got more of a chance that they get that book open. Now, the next one that we have are these tools called dynamic study modules. Essentially what these are mastery-based learning. I'll go ahead and open one up for you real quick. And what I like about these is these are a way to get them into the book and have points, because the way that they get points on this is they essentially, these are created in modules. And I know you guys have a small screen, so let me see if I can get this as big as I can. But if you notice up here across the top, there's a bunch of little check marks. There's white and green and red ones. So the idea around these is kids love to memorize. So this is mastery-based learning. That's what it is. They have to turn every one of these green to get full credit for this module. And so they'll go through this. And the learning science around it is it's based around chunking. We're going to get 8 questions in. We're going to stop you. We're going to go back, tell you the correct answer, what you put in, and then we're going to help you relearn it. And we're going to go pull it right from the book. So this is pulled right from the book. What I love about Tro's is it pulls in even all of his videos, and we know kids crave this stuff. So from an engagement standpoint, maybe you don't do a scheduled reading and these fit the whole purpose for you. This is how you want it introduced, and it's the grade you want, and this serves that purpose. But again, having something that can do that for them. And so then they go through, as they go through and check their answers, they kind of get caught back up on the book on where they went wrong, and they relearn, and they go back in and try to get these right the next time through. So to me, that's just a great tool to, like I said, get them introduced before lecture, get them to understand some of the basics that's going on in that chapter. I have talked to some instructors think these are just a great way to assess and see if they have understood the basics for a course. So they'll even fit them in down the road, you know, after a lecture. So again, just a tool that can fit in. There's lots of places you can use these. Nice piece, plug and play, right? You can plug and play. These are quick and easy and assigned very quickly. All right, so the next piece on here, when we get back to that module, is then, and then the other thing I bring up here is if you look at this module, I do a lot with naming of assignments. So just even having a system that allows you to name things whatever you want to name them. I mean, that seems weird and trivial, right? But some systems might not let you name things. You know, they might just say, here's your objective. It's called this objective. That's what you have to get to. But there's a lot to get buy-in, because remember, we're trying to engage these students and get them out of the mindset of I'm going to get points and into the fact of this has a purpose for me to understand. And so I've done that even and been very intentional about how I name things. So like this one's a learn and review assignment. This one's try to do it with some help. And then this, can I do it on my own without any help? And one more try, can I do it before the test? So again, it kind of goes through the structure that you can get into. So let me get into the learn and review, because this is really what a lot of instructors miss. And to me, where the power of mastering really comes in. And so what this allows you is we've got hundreds and hundreds of, you know, interactives, videos. You can see some of the titles here, pause and predict videos, key concept videos, things that take a heavy lift for you to create that are in the author's voice that you could quickly assign and create some type of assignment that would be more of a learning and engagement assignment. Now, this also gives you the freedom to use these wherever you want. I have an engineering school that basically, because they've got some really, really, really smart kids, they don't want to waste their time. So they'll take these learning activities and combine them with end of chapter, make these worth practice, and the end of chapters worth credit. So then they've got tutorials inside the assignment. They don't count, but if a kid needs them, they can click on them and come back to them. So again, flexibility and control, and the huge breadth of content that makes this type of design very easy for you to do. So those are our learning and reviewing topics. And then the other piece, especially, I always bring this up, if you see anything that says key concept interactives or key concept videos, these are all things that are unique to Tro himself. And one of the other pieces that Tro brings in that I love about is he pulls in the learning science about spacing and retrieval. So what kids don't naturally do when I talked about reading, they just read, and never stop to see if they understood. All of his digital content has stopping points to make them engage and say, did I understand what he just went through? Even his interactive worked examples are done that way. He'll work some stuff, but he'll stop them. Now it's just, they have to mark it on the sheet and they could just guess or whatever, but at least it stops them and says, hey, let's think a little bit. And I think that's very powerful in what he has, in his materials. All right, so then, oops, wrong thing. The only other pieces that I have in here essentially are assessments. So these last 3 assignments are exactly what all our chemists love, end of chapter questions. But what the key piece here, and one of the things that if you leave here doing anything differently, don't make all your stuff due on one day. All you're doing is encouraging students to cheat. They look at and making them see that only as points. Because we know what a D student does. Probably opens it up 2 hours before they get to that due date, right? And then they start working. As soon as they struggle, they Google. And it's just it gives them more reasons to see that as just a way to grab points and not a learning opportunity. So spread it out. All the educational research says you have to space it out. You have to give it time to forget, to come back and engage it again, to retrieve it. And that's the best efficient way to learn. And so that's what I've done here. I've got 3 assignments that are there just on end of chapter, but it spaces them out. There's, this is on March 1st, this is due on March 2nd, this is due on March 3rd. And if you talk to Tro and you talk about how he sets up his courses, and we do have pre-builts that you can use from him. So he's got a complete plug and play for you if you want it, but he has students do something 5 days a week. They're not long, they're short. Now also think about that even helps encourage engagement because the kids know that's only going to be about 15 minutes, but he has them doing something every day of the week. It could be a pre-lecture just to get videos and a dynamic study module to be engaged before lecture. Could be a post-lecture where they're working through interactive worked examples with Tro, or, or it could be end of chapters that are set up, to be spaced out. And that's essentially the format that you're allowed to do because you have that flexibility and control and mastering to set those up with different purpose. You can even weight these different. We have unlimited weighting. So you can make this one worth 50% of the whole mastering grade and make all these add up to something little. The kids never pick up on that. They think it's just points. They just jump through to get them all. So, use those little, hidden tricks that we have in here to get them engaged because they'll jump through hoops for points. The only other thing on here in my little list is students always have a study area and they never go there because it doesn't count for points. I put a direct link inside the LMS here so that they can actually get to it because that's where all of the videos and all the examples, even if you don't assign them, live and they can get to them on their own, but they never go there because they're not points. So I just renamed it More Help instead of Google, try to get them engaged a little bit more. And so that's essentially my spiel here around what gets unlocked and where we can really help you. It's really kind of allowing you to figure out what learning path fits for your teaching style. What would aid you to get the most out of that next little piece that would help you. One of the other biggest topics that comes up that I never want to forget is class engagement. And I do think it's probably the most powerful tool in here. I just did we call them digital leadership forums where we bring in about 15 of your peers and really kind of dig into our technology and ideas around how it can be used best. And the person I brought in his name's Matt Garner. He's at University of Arkansas. And he came in to present on this learning catalytics, which is our in-class, I call it clickers on steroids system. It's basically team-based learning. It allows you to ask 18 different kinds of questions. It has so much flexibility that you can really get really unique. And what I loved about how he explained this is the simple version is he preps his lectures to get through every single topic he wants to get through. But every topic starts with a question that he pushes out to their students. And so what he can do is he'll start with that question and look at it. And because he uses the seating chart, he can see exactly, the percentage and numbers of kids that understand it. He can then guide himself or a TA to groups of people that don't. And he doesn't move on to the next topic until he has them all to an understanding. So he uses the system to see that they have the understanding. But what I love about it is it basically individualizes every section's lecture because he doesn't have to waste time on stuff that students show that they understand. And then he only spends his lecture time on exactly what that data says. Hey, these kids don't get it. Let's dig in. And so it really makes it focused, but it makes it very efficient for him. And what I also love about it is it really creates a mindset in the students that this class is a partnership with him. because he's really focused on what they're doing. And so if you want to get into that, I could easily set you up with Matt. He's got some really neat stuff on how he does that. But then another tool that's in here, that flexibility, that this is where you could use, this is the consolidation part. This is where you help them understand the topics. And it's just one tool to help you do that with, that lives in here. The final piece that's on the topic or on the minds of everybody is AI. And so let me start simple. We have two places that we start, and this started in October, and it's probably the most thing that's freaked me out the most about AI is how quickly it changes. We had a speaker come in and talk about it's now, things used to, if you, the example they use is, here's a video that was created from text to video. It's just, he said into the bot, make a panda with a baseball hat on that's playing baseball, and it spit something out, and it looked really digitized and all that. And that, he goes, that was made 6 months ago. And then he put another one up, did the same thing, and it looked like he had different parameters, but then it was something that looked like a real human that spoke and said everything he wanted to. And so when he showed that change just in 6 months, it's really opened my eyes to how quickly this is changing, and even what we're developing is changing that quickly. But the simple version, if we kind of start wide to that professor that just says, you know what, I'm fine with just having an e-text, we can help you out with just that because of the way the e-text can be engaging. So I'm in a chapter here, and I really think this is going to go along with kids. We've got videos in here, we've got interactives, but when a student's in here, they can say, you know what, I want to turn my little chatbot on over here, this AI study tool, and say, I would really help me if you could just summarize this current section. I click send, and bam, it pops it up into that, right? Again, they may struggle on finding what's important and what's not, and they needed some help here. So once it's summarized for them, they can even go in and say, you know what, hey, turn it into flashcards for me. Or can you save it as notes so that I can have my notes? So just think about how kids engage now. They may or may not at all, but having this there might lead to even some more engagement before lecture or how you might use that tool. The other functionality inside here is, hey, you know what? I want to practice. I want to practice the current section, and I want, multiple choice sections. Let's just do the whole chapter so we can do them all. And I want multiple choice questions. So now I can generate my own little self quiz over this little section and kind of quiz myself as I go along. Again, one of the things they don't naturally do, but maybe they might engage more if this was there, along with wrong answer feedback, right? Guiding them there, getting them to the right answer. And then the other piece that's in here is just an explain button where they could go in and say, hey, can you explain whatever they type in a little bit more? This has guardrails.
Sorry, Tim, I apologize. No, I was just going to say, one thing I like about this is students can't just plop the homework questions into the AI tool and say, answer this for me. It does not do that. It generates other questions along those same lines.
Yeah, very true. These have there's distinct guardrails put on here, and I think it's a little misleading. When it says an AI study tool, I think a lot of people think it's going out to ChatGPT and using that. No, we've used the AI to design the study tool and put the parameters of our content as the guide rails. So it's not going out anywhere. It's staying within Pearson content, but we've also used the AI tool to really program a cohesive guiding tutorial process that's going on here. All right, so that's in the e-text. I think the one weird story I've heard already around this was a non-majors biology course actually electing to use a majors biology book because of this interactive feature here. They thought that the fact that they could summarize a big book like that is essentially cutting that book down to a non-majors book anyway, but they also would really value the students interacting with the text, so they wanted that functionality. So it's making, so it's already making some changes that I would never have ever thought would happen. All right, the other piece that's in here is, you all are lucky. The first place we put it inside our mastering questions was chemistry, and we're making leaps and bounds every month actually. So it's right now it's focused just on multiple choice questions, but I've heard that numerical is going to be open and ready to go in about 2 weeks. But essentially, I'll give you a quick little tour here of what's going to happen, and we can easily set you up because this is live now, but you can play around with this. And I think one of the better ways is for you to play around with it, because you're going to think about how your students might ask the question or how they might want to engage. But essentially, they takes our multiple choice questions when they get it wrong and says, hey, do you want to get a study tool pop up to help you? And then what that does is basically turn on that tutor that's been programmed by us, especially because we know wrong answer. We can really put in all these features to make this act like a tutor. So it's going to be really focused on giving them a different problem, but similar, and then really breaking it down in steps and providing feedback as it's coaching them and getting them to understand. So I got that part right. Now let's think about this. And so it really is essentially taking the problem and breaking it down so that the student can understand the steps they need to do to go through this. And so now thinking about that whole fit about learning, like that learning path, where would you plug that in? Would you do that before lecture, right? To get a little coaching in there. Would it fit after lecture? You know, how does that little tool fit into how you would design or use these types of activities in here? And so we do have right now in the multiple choice, it will also decide. I mean, if it's a computational one like this, it's going to give them a similar problem and break it down in steps. If it's a conceptual one, it's going to make sure they break down the concept with them. But again, this is changing rapidly. And by the fall, I imagine there's going to be even more types of problems available and more uses for this. All right, that is essentially everything as far as, you know, kind of explaining how I talk through what could be useful for you. How to look at this a little differently, and maybe hopefully open up some ideas around, you know, where we could really help you all with your students. So I'll stop sharing and see if you all have any questions.
What you've told us so far, is that limited primarily to TRO for right now, or is this something that is being deployed across all of your books?
Are you speaking specifically about the AI tool?
The AI tool seems like it may be the newest thing. So what's the status on the AI tool getting?
So the AI is, yeah, the AI is in all of Tro's, his Adams First, his Gen Chem book, his intro book, and then our Brown LeMay Gen Chem book as well. By fall, I think we've committed. That's all the chemistry books we're committed to by fall. We may end up getting Timberlake, which is one of our GOB books, in there as well. But I talk about the change, you know, how quick this can be done. So we just started, we mapped Tro's content in October. And as they did this over and over again, we went from being able to set up an entire course in about 4 weeks down to now we can do it in about 2 days. So we could, you know, beta this out even into more texts. We're committed to these for now, but it's moving rapidly.
Okay.
Yeah, and I will say the other features that Tim looked at, dynamic study modules, learning catalytics, that is global across all of our chemistry titles.
Exactly.
All of your, what do you consider all of your chemistry? Do you consider your PChem text to be that?
No, I do not, because
Okay, well, yeah.
There's a lot of things within you know, mastering a lot of those pieces, you know, like a scheduled reading, things like that, but you will get limited, you know, we're limited less on assets like videos, dynamic study modules, those pieces. You're right. Yes.
And I will say this morning I did a thermodynamics / physical chemistry demonstration, and we did have dynamic study modules for that course. So the Engle text.
Yeah.
And what's your,
so if you're interested, I could just say we could set you up courses, you can start taking a look, but now you kind of know, you know, how to look. And then I didn't get really deep in there, but it seems like there's so much. One of the things that I really try to leave you with, and maybe I should do that, the way we've set up our item library, there's so many filters that all of those assignments can be done very quickly. I mean, when you open a TRO chapter 5 and see that there's 860 items that can be assigned, that seems overwhelming. But if you go in and filter and saying, just give me the tutorials, right? And the things that'll help them learn, then it condenses it really quick and it allows you to grab those things. If you want to plug and play, if you took Tro's pre-builts, you would just copy that. You could literally have your course set up in about 10 minutes, because then all you're doing is taking his assignments and just drag and dropping them to a calendar and setting due dates. So you can dip your toe in the water quick and easy.
I think people are, you know, still in the mindset where they think, you know, changing text for a big class like general chemistry or general biology is this very laborious thing that's going to take months and months of work. And it's just not the way anymore. You know, we come with pre-built assignments that have done 80% of the work for you. And then you can take stuff out, add stuff in, and it gives you a nice template But now even with the AI tool, it's even faster. So we just always want people to know it's not quite the heavy lift that it has been in the past if you are considering change.
Yeah, there's good news for us teachers. I mean, the other place we're going to pull this AI is, imagine now when you go in, instead of you set up one assignment and you say, I need an assignment to introduce material to my students, and it just pulls everything and says, we suggest this. I mean, it's going to end up being that way, where it's going to be helping you, serve. I would also, on your own, start exploring what it can do for you, just creating PowerPoints. I think you can take like anything and say, turn that into a PowerPoint for me. We're starting to really explore that too. And I think even outside Pearson, that piece can really come into play as well.
How are you incorporating this into price structure? In other words, it usually is the case that we're buying mastering along with the textbook. What's your typical price point for students?
I'm going to let John and
Okay.
Yeah, I'll let Aaron take that one. Yeah.
Okay, so well, first of all, it depends on which course. Like with the Gen Chem, if they're in Big Red Backpack, with Big Red Backpack, it's $24.99 a credit hour.
Right.
So, and all of that is included in the mastering price. It wouldn't be any, there's no extra charge for the AI or.
So in the absence of Big Red Backpack, they're looking at paying about $75.
Yeah, I think that's close to our national pricing for semester.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to get at. I just want to be able to compare it to doing something with an open textbook, et cetera.
Yeah. So it's about, but again, that's the e-text, the mastering, the assignments. You're not gonna pay for anything else.
Okay. And is that for is that for 6-month access basically to all that? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just helpful to make sure that I'm comparing the same thing.
Yes, exactly. No, I totally get it.
Okay.
I apologize. I lost connection. Did I miss anything important in the last 30
No,
seconds?
we just got the price done.
We were just talking about price per
Credit.
per credit hour then, because they are an EA school, but if they opt out, how much it would be for students.
Well, and keep in mind, especially for Gen Chem, if they opt out, the purchase price, and I'm sure Aaron will look that up, it's for 24-month access. So, that they have it for 2 years.
Okay. Well, and that does matter. Is there an option? Can we give them an option of 6 or 24? In other words, there are a lot of students who are only going to take one semester of general chemistry.
Yes,
and some of them will pass it. So there's no reason for them to pay for more than 6 months worth of access.
There's 18-week, typically there's 18 week.
Okay,
or
that's
24
fine.
months.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that you just made me think of, because I saw the smile when you said some of them may pass. I don't want to think negatively, but there's a couple of really important pieces here. So we talked a little bit about prereq knowledge, and we've put a lot of money into some things that kind of are there to really help you around things that really aren't part of the class. And we talk about remediation. So a couple of things I missed. One, this is maybe 1.5 years old, but essentially a boot camp, a math boot camp built in here inside the dynamic study modules, where they start with a math quiz, and then they get personalized remediation modules to get them caught up in the math. So it has nothing to do with chemistry. This is just math skills. So another tool you could just say, hey, plug and play, I need you to go and get caught up here. These can be separated out by due dates. You can say, you know what, I need you to be done with the numbers part by, first week of class, or, then the next one, the second week. You have a lot of flexibility on how you assign these. But the other one that we talked a little bit about, and this just because I don't want to miss this, I had these pulled over. They were created by a biologist at University of Illinois. Her name's Melissa Reedy. And her Gen Bio course, so these are STEM students, has about 800 kids in it. She was voluntarily getting about 150 a semester coming to her for an extra night a week on how to study for college. Nothing to do with biology. And so we helped her develop these into modules. And the reason they're in chemistry now is I was at Iowa State, and the physics instructor was saying, we are spending our recitation section on teaching kids how to study. We're not even addressing physics. We're so frustrated. And so I was like, well, I showed these students, she's like, this is exactly what we need. So I made sure we pulled these over and put them into physics and into chemistry. So again, plug and play, you could assign these and force them to go through these. Dynamic study models are unique where students can get to them without you assigning them as well. So just another tool that could really help around some frustrations I'm finding across the country that I think could be very helpful. And then along with that, you'll never find this, I think, in other systems. They're going to do things like our boot camp that I talked about, where they have these little things built to kind of remediate. But when you're assigning things, you can actually hand pick remediation and put it within your assignment. So imagine that you know what? I know in chapter 3 that, converting units is going to be something they get struggle with. Why not put the tutorial in there that goes back over it with them right in there in that math review, and then get them into their chapter content. So you can plug and play even specific remediation content. We have math review, we have chemistry review, and we even have primer material. So again, just lots and lots of content to give you that flexibility to really meet kids right where they can help. And the other piece that people don't think about is that anything in here can be assigned as practice. So let's say you just wanted to, you know what? I know they never go to the chat, to the study area. I just want to go in and grab all of the, let me get it this, where am I at here? Here we go. Catch up. I just need all the videos for chapter 3. So I go in here, this little filter, I go to videos, I've got 14, I can select them all, assign them, make them all practice, and say, look, don't go looking on Google. All the videos from the author are in there. It's a video assignment. Doesn't count for credit, but it's right there in your click path. So think about modularization and just grabbing content. Mastering has the ability of just a way for you to grab content and put it in the list of things for their students as well. So just another way of looking at using this, not as essentially homework, but as a way to grab content. We know they only do what counts for credit, so maybe you'll start assigning it, but at least those people that have different ways of thinking about things, it fits everybody's mindset as far as, hey, when we're trying to get together as a committee and say what's best, this system really allows everybody to do their own little way of using it. All right, other questions? I went past my half hour. I thought I'd be done in a half hour.
Fine.
Any way we can help you. And the other piece I'll offer is I'm always available. So if you guys ever want to do some one-on-one stuff or dig in, happy to do that. That's the part I nerd out on a little bit, is trying to find a way to fit it exactly with what you want to do.
And one thing also I wanted to point out that's different now is, when a school decides to make a change, we actually offer help with that. We have faculty advisors who are also instructors, but who teach or like master users of mastering. And we can sit down and literally help build the course. So there's lots of support and help surrounding this stuff, where it's not like it used to be, where, hey, thank you and have fun creating this. No, we actually walk lockstep with you the whole way.
Any other
Wonderful.
questions?
I think so. Thank you, though.
Thank you.
It's interesting to see that you're adapting to more modern problems. That's good. I appreciate that. For the longest time, it was, oh no, you just need to get them to do more of these. No, you can't ask students to do 100 problems a week. It doesn't work.
I am with you. I think you're from an engaged, especially like I said, I think ChatGPT has changed that, right? I mean, they're going to try. I've got all kinds of people doing it and taking problems and plugging it in, and it'll get some of them right and some of them wrong, but kids don't care. They don't think about that, right? But at least to me, it's more around them getting it and shifting their brain into, it's a learning opportunity. Why am I doing this? I'm doing this to see if I'm ready for the test, or I'm doing this to see if I understand the concept, not just to get points. And I think if you make it lower stakes, you'll talk about the big word with kids nowadays is anxiety. How many times have you heard anxiety? But it's more around just low stakes, but hitting it more often, right? And it just leads to more engagement on their end. And hopefully some more learning, right? And then you guys could, I'll tell you one, this is one that really caught my eye, and this has nothing to do with what we're talking about. So 2 years ago, that digital leadership forum that we had Jill Robinson. She writes our Robinson McMurray Fay book for Gen Chem. She's at Indiana, and she came to that session 2 years ago and said, hey, we started giving exam retakes. And she started talking about how it's really affecting their course. And that's pretty controversial, right? And I can see looks on your faces. I get looks of like, oh my God, no way, that kind of thing. But then Matt, the person I talked about for learning analytics, took that idea at University of Arkansas and started doing it this last year. And he was sharing a couple weeks ago some of his results. And one of the ones that just blew my mind is he has a really quick, I think it's a 6-week summer course, Gen Chem. And it took his DFW rates, his withdrawal rates went from 43% to 3%. And that really, when we see things like that, it's really catching eyes, as far as what can be done. And I just said, we talked a lot about that. And I think it really, the reason I bring it up is that this whole idea of lower stakes, things like that, it just gets them, it releases their anxiety. They're very anxious kids nowadays, but it also gets them more bought into just learning, right? It's not a test and points to go get. It's, I need to really learn this material. And he talks about how, because he does that on the very first test, they don't fall into the gap, right? They don't fall so far behind, they never catch up and never are successful, because that he thinks that that's a big key to the success, is they know he can get them caught up. They, if you think typically I flunked the first test, do they ever go back and review that test? Do they ever try to catch up? They don't. But if you have a retake, they go back and study again, and they really dig in and see, why did I miss? And they get themselves caught up so they don't fall even further behind. So just a philosophical thing that like I said, it caught my eye, and I like to share teaching ideas. So just, one that's out there that I thought has been pretty significant.
I agree that if you can manage it, giving retakes is a great strategy. It just takes a lot more class time. So
you got it.
That ends up being the trade-off that you end up doing. But
yeah, and that's where we could get in. And
retake,
exactly, and that's where the conversation went. How do you do this? Do you do scantrons? Do you do this? Do that? He's got, so if you're interested in that, I'd love to get you in touch with him. He's got all of that kind of figured out, so it's pretty efficient.
Okay.
So.
Awesome. Have you guys done any so with your questions and so forth, do you try to game it like the students will try, and like have you built into it, like making like a check proof type of homework system or assessment system, or is it about what I would expect with just they can easily just cut and paste their question into Google, and like a question from Mastery into Google, and then it finds the answer for them?
Yeah, I don't know if we'll ever figure that piece out because of ChatGPT. I will say that, like the AI tool, we have done all of that. Like they can say, give me the answer, or take one of the steps and say, can you calculate this for me? And it won't do any of those things and say, sorry. It'll just give them, reverbs of, hey, we're trying to coach you through how to understand this one. I can't give you the answer. But some of that piece is we're just never going to solve. And so that's why I really talk about getting that mindset of this. Online pieces are experiences for them to see if they understand, right? And the more you can do to change them of seeing that as points, as a value step in the learning process, the better you have to worry about that. I will say that I think the shorter steps, but one of the things I'm seeing is a lot of people are starting to create either study guides, or some people call them reading guides. But what they're incorporating, what I think has been a big miss, is requiring them to write down things like when they open a mastering problem, it gets written down and then that gets turned in, so that work, they're not thinking of it as I just got to get points. It's, I'm recording this and it's going to be a collection of what my work is, so I can go back and refer to it. It's shifting those ideas of this is a learning opportunity rather than a point opportunity. And those courses that do things like this are very deliberate at the beginning. They really go in and dive in and say, it's set up this way for these reasons. I even have instructors that bring in previous students that record little videos and say, look, this is going to look like a lot of work, or there's multiple assignments per week. It's there for these reasons. It helped me for these reasons. And it's that piece that if you're very deliberate at the beginning, you really foster a partnership and you don't have to worry about that as much. And I know it's not an answer. You're always going to get kids to do that, but at some point you got to say, you know what, when do you beat your head against the wall about cheating, and just make it more about learning and just giving them the path, and they do with what it is, right? You're just never going to stop the cheating. So,
and I don't know if you guys utilize any type of proctoring service, but Pierce, we have Respondus and ProctorU. So it's, we have
not yet, not for chemistry.
Okay, not for chemistry. Gotcha.
Coming for chemistry in 2025.
Okay, gotcha.
yeah, that piece comes up. But yeah, but there's some, I got some references we can have Aaron or John send you. There's some pretty good studies in the Chemical Education Journal. The one that they did at Ohio State around these structured courses like this. And there's one I got from Marquette where they've basically took 10 years of course changes. Like, hey, we went to a flipped classroom where we introduced online graded homework and we introduced these things. And the key piece that really impacted these DFWs is creating some type of structure, some type of step-by-step piece that guides students. And so it's just, and that, like I said, it's resonated in a lot of our books, like our new organic book. There's a whole chapter on this. There's a whole chapter on how to attack organic, and the author's voice is more around, let's do this as a partnership and work through this together. And so when I've seen all that and my experiences with just, my own experience in education, to me, that's the power of why to use technology. It gets you that piece to make it useful, and if it can be done easy for you, I think, that's even encouraging to, do it for students.
And Tim, forgive me, I might have missed this. Did you talk about, we have scheduled readings, right?
Yeah, we
for,
talked about that.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Awesome.
It's a
Thanks so
rainy
much
day
for
in
spending some time
Cincinnati,
with
so
us.
internet connection spotty here, sorry.
The lights are on now.
That's true. I'm in the light.
All right,
Awesome.
well, thank you, Tim and
Yeah.
John.
Thanks.
I'll let you know if we have any questions, and but I appreciate your all's time, and I will talk to you all soon.
Okay.
Sounds good. Thanks so
Yep,
much.
and,
Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.
And I'll give you the recording, all right?